This episode is brought to you by Hired.com. Searching for a new job can feel stressful, scary, and time-consuming. Pushy recruiters try to sell you on roles that you don't actually want, and job boards make you feel like you're throwing your resume into a black hole, never to be seen again. Sometimes you go all the way through an interview process just to find out at the very end that the salary offer or company culture doesn't match what you're looking for. Hired is the world's most intelligent talent matching platform for full-time and contract opportunities in engineering, development, design, product management, data science, sales, and marketing. We make your job search faster, focused, and stress-free. Instead of endlessly applying to companies and hoping for the best, Hired puts you in control of when and how you connect with compelling new opportunities. After completing one simple application, top employers apply to hire you. On Hired, you receive personalized interview requests and upfront salary information so you can make informed decisions about which opportunities to pursue over a condensed timeline. Throughout the process, your dedicated talent advocate will have your back, providing unbiased career coaching to help you put your best foot forward with potential employers. Hired offers access to 4,000 plus innovative employers, including big brands such as Facebook and smaller emerging startups. The size and type of company you want to connect with is totally up to you. We help people find new opportunities in 17 major cities in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Open to relocation? Let us know. Your privacy and autonomy in your job search is of utmost importance to us. That's why Hired hides your profile from your current and past employers. The best part is it's always free for you to find your next job on Hired, no exceptions. We pay you to get hired. Today's listeners can earn double our normal $1,000 hiring bonus by signing up with the show's link. That's right, earn $2,000 for finding your next chapter on Hired. Visit hired.com/React Native Radio to learn more. This episode is brought to you by DailyDrip.com. Daily Drip makes keeping up to date on programming skills easier. You already know how much time it takes to find good resources and learn new languages. What if the hard part of that was already done for you? Sign up for Daily Drip and pick a topic that you want to learn about. Want to learn React Native? How about Elm? Maybe you want to brush up on your CSS and HTML. Every weekday, you'll get a short video or reading delivered to you via email. The best part is it only takes 5 minutes a day. We have a special coupon code just for React Native Radio listeners. If you sign up using the coupon code RNRadio, all one word, you'll save $9 on your first month, which means you can try out the React Native topic for free. Don't forget to use the coupon code RNRadio to show support for our podcast. Make learning part of your daily routine with DailyDrip.com. Hello, welcome to episode 56 of React Native Radio. Today on our panel, we have Peter Pikarczyk.
Hey, everybody.
I'm your host, Nader Davitt. And today our special guest is Aaron Williams. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to be kind of talking about a couple things. First, we're going to be talking with Aaron about how they've used React Native at his company, also how he has adapted to React Native coming from a traditional iOS developer background. And then finally, if we have some time towards the end, we're going to kind of do a recap of what was discussed at ReactConf concerning React Native. So I guess to kick things off, Aaron, can you introduce yourself and kind of tell us how you got into programming?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I got into programming pretty late. Between my junior and senior year of college, I had an internship as a business analyst for an iPad app. And the internship didn't go too well. I didn't really enjoy it, but I did enjoy learning more about the app itself and everything about it. So I had taken a programming class earlier in college, and I, was like, this is kind of what I want to do. So basically, between that summer and when I had to interview for jobs for graduation, I just kind of, started from the ground up with Objective-C and iOS and, just kind of taught myself enough to get through an interview. And ever since then, been developing, in iOS pretty much professionally, since then. But I've also, played around with things like Node and Android and obviously React Native.
So you went to school for business, I guess, and you kind of fell into programming?
Yeah. So I went to for business, basically. And it was, I was management information systems, which was kind of more of a business analyst, between the business people and the the programmers. But yeah, and programming just kind of ended up calling to me, I guess, towards the end when I was looking for a job.
Well, that's cool. Well, you didn't get in too late. I didn't start really programming until I was 29. So it's still
Yeah, so you're a lot like me.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
So can you tell me about the company you work with now and kind of what you all do there?
Yeah. So I currently work at Sprout Social. And what Sprout Social is, our main product is basically a social media management tool that helps companies and organizations better manage just the overall engagement with customers and via social media, as well as things like analytics. And we also have a secondary product called Bamboo, which was released about a year ago. That is an employee advocacy platform for social media. So basically, what that means is it's a way for a company to kind of use their employees as a way to advocate their brand through social media. For example, like if I was an employee, I would have a list of stories that my company curated, and I would be able to share it to like all my different social media networks.
So you guys built Bamboo using React Native?
Yes, that was our first kind of step into React Native.
So can you kind of give us like a quick overview of what your experience was as an iOS developer kind of coming into React Native? And like before you got started, were you optimistic or pessimistic? And did any of those views change by the time you guys finished your app and kind of released it and now are maintaining it?
Yeah. So originally, when React Native was proposed, I was cautiously optimistic about it. I think along with the rest of my team, because we were pretty much all mobile developers with very little JavaScript experience. So I was worried, but I thought it was going to be a good choice to at least try out. And so overall, the experience I think went pretty well. Obviously, like learning JavaScript, I had never spent any time in like web development at all or anything. So kind of learning JavaScript and kind of everything, all the different frameworks and libraries that it brings, definitely took some getting used to, and there was definitely a learning curve to it, and just kind of getting used to the whole reactive programming style in general. And so kind of, as the project grew, like sometimes it was kind of frustrating because I felt like I could do things quicker in iOS. Kind of towards the end of the project, I started to really see kind of the value that React Native provides, just in the fact that, there's so much less you have to worry about when you have, one language that can be shared between an iOS, Android, and even a web app that do very similar things.
So would you say like the main value that you guys saw there was mainly the fact that you could kind of deploy to both Android and iOS with not a lot of code rewrite, I guess you would say?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was I think that was the big advantage for us and was one of the main reasons we kind of went forward with React Native. I think another almost equally as important but unintended consequence was that by kind of opening ourselves up to JavaScript, we also learned a lot of new, patterns and libraries that, iOS and Android haven't caught on as much in the Android or iOS world. And we were able to kind of bring some of those ideas back with us to when we were working on the main Sprout Social apps, which are both written in native.
So the main Sprout Social app is like a native Android and a native iOS. So you guys have both iOS and Android teams, I guess, and web teams?
Yeah, exactly. So, for that app, it's all one's written in Swift and Objective-C, and then Java for the Android app.
So, what's been the experience maintaining it and upgrading it, or have you even needed to go through upgrades if it's kind of not really getting any new features, or are you guys adding features and stuff?
Yeah, so one of the really cool things is that we were actually none of the mobile developers work on it full time now, but we do have our web developers have taken it over. So I maintained it for a month or two after the release, but since then the web devs who work on the Bamboo app on web have taken it over, and they've been able to add a bunch of new features and everything to it. I was actually just looking at the repo today, and I was surprised to see kind of all the things they've added, with very little support from us and everything, which was pretty cool.
Was that transition period weird for you guys? Were there times where, people were like freaking out, like, I don't get what's going on, or, like setting up your environment or even downloading Xcode or Android Studio? Were those things that people had trouble with, especially, given the lack of native backgrounds?
Yeah, I think as a team, we handled it pretty well. So the web developers who are working on it now kind of consulted us through the project as we were learning React and JavaScript in general. So I think they picked up a lot of things from us just through like code reviews while we were working on the project. And then kind of when we transitioned, kind of handed it off to them, it was actually a pretty smooth transition overall. I think the biggest issue was just kind of releasing to like the App Store, given all the, provisioning profiles and certificates and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, it went fairly smoothly.
Cool. So you mentioned before that the iOS teams started building the app, right? Mm-hmm. Was there like a point where you were all working on things together? Because I'm assuming, I'm not sure if you were using Redux or anything, but I'm assuming maybe your web developers had more experience, setting things up like with the modern JavaScript way, whereas you had more experience, building a native app. Was there a lot of overlap?
Yeah, there was definitely. So kind of in the beginning of the project, we actually, our JavaScript developers made a lot of the technical kind of decisions for us, considering like JavaScript, like in Redux and everything. So overall, like the overlap was pretty good because they kind of set us up with the best tools, and we just kind of went along with them at that point, and it helped us, kind of avoid, as iOS developers, it helped us avoid trying to like sift through like all the, because JavaScript changes so fast, and especially if you're coming from the outside, it's hard to keep up with what is current. Like, for example, when we jumped into this project, I'd never used like ES6, which was, a huge improvement over the previous versions of JavaScript. So overall, like that was a kind of good dynamic that we had with the team.
So I'm kind of curious, what decisions did you all make when building the app as far as like navigation and data storage and APIs in general? I know this was a few months ago, or maybe even 6 or longer months ago when you started. So some of the stuff may have changed as far as like the most up-to-date things, but I'm kind of curious, what are some of the decisions that y'all made?
One of our big decisions was using Redux. That was a super helpful library for just kind of managing the state. For navigation, we went with React Native Router Redux, I believe, or Router Flux. And that was, I think navigation is kind of an issue for everyone in React Native, and it was for us. That's definitely like probably something we'll probably visit again going forward. And then other than that, I think storage-wise, we didn't really store too much with the app. We didn't store too much natively or anything. So those were our two biggest third-party libraries that we used.
So when working on this, did you have any like performance issues, like when it comes to animations or gestures or anything like that?
Yeah. So we, I know. Originally, we had some problems with the list view early on, which I wasn't as much a part of. But I think our biggest performance issue was with GIFs on iOS. Basically, I'm not sure how it's changed in the past few months, but iOS doesn't really have a native way of supporting GIFs. And at Sprout, we use GIFs a lot in our Bamboo, the articles that we share on Bamboo. So what would happen on lower capacity of memory devices for iOS is that basically if it was a big enough GIF, it would crash the app for us. And we kind of had to hunt down everywhere we kind of used the built-in way to set images in React Native. And we had to basically get a whole new image for iOS so that we didn't play the GIF. But that was probably the largest performance issue that we had throughout the project.
That's interesting. I'm having a similar issue right now with Android. iOS seems to be working good for us, and then Android GIFs are giving us some trouble. In fact, when we upgraded to the newest version of React Native, it causes the app to crash now, just like you said it did for you guys. So.
Yeah, I guess maybe they fixed one and broke the other. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so overall, the app was pretty light, so not a ton of performance issues, which I think was pretty good. It was people commented more on how well it performed, knowing that it was a cross-platform app.
That's really cool to hear, especially because a lot of people are still like, "Oh, I can definitely see like the performance differences." So, have you guys considered using something like Microsoft Code Push to like make changes on the fly, or are you using anything like that?
Yeah, so I think we did talk a little bit about it sort of when I was coming off the project. I don't think we ever went with it, but I think I saw something earlier this week that might be, and I'm not sure if it's that exact implementation, but Apple might be kind of laying the hammer down on that going forward. So I'll have to look more into it, but if it's still allowed, that's probably something we'll integrate in the future, kind of as we get more, as we kind of hire more and get more developers on the app.
Yeah. Nader, you might know more about this than I do, but I think it's just there were services that were actually injecting native code somehow. They were doing some really cray stuff. And from what I heard, they won't be cracking down on, like updating your JavaScript, just like updating native modules.
Yeah, they definitely cracked down, it seems, over the last week or two, but it seems to not really have anything to do with a specific JavaScript library that updates remotely, because there's not only Code Push, but also there are Cordova apps that have been doing this for years, and a bunch of other libraries that are similar to Code Push. I think Rollout and maybe one other one use a specific method that does alter native code on the fly. And also there are ways of doing that without using a library, just kind of accessing methods either through React Native or through Cordova. And I think they're looking for those specific cases, and Code Push still works. In fact, we've pushed an update recently in the last week with Code Push, and everything is fine at our company.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, that's definitely something we hope to kind of integrate as we get on to more of a frequent release cycle, and hopefully we can just kind of avoid that 1 to 2 day wait time.
Yeah, Code Push is awesome. I mean, we actually even today pushed a fix to our newest version, a hot fix. So basically, like, we had some users where if they set the zoom of their iOS device, like the 6 Plus or something like that, it made it to where they couldn't like log in with their PIN number or something like that. And we got on there, found the issue, and reproduced it. And then an hour later, we had a fix, pushed it up, and the users were able to actually, just open the app and it updates automatically. Code Push is amazing. We've been super happy with it so far. I would totally check it out. And I know there's a lot of other, there's not a lot, but there are a handful of other services like Code Push, but like Code Push, the quality of their documentation and the people that work there, like, you reach out to them, they will give you an answer. I would just recommend Code Push over any of them right now, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll definitely have to check that out, because I think, just kind of, that's, especially for web devs, that's been one of the, that was probably the thing that they knew least about, was kind of pushing to the different, app stores and getting like the permissions right and everything. So I think those tools like definitely have a lot of value that you can't really get from native implementations.
Yeah, and if you have like an app that isn't going to be getting a lot of native updates or any native updates, it brings it back to the web experience of saving and uploading new versions, like multiple times a week or even a day, really, without it really being that big of a deal. So,
yeah, very cool.
I know you had mentioned navigation, and we just a few days ago, I guess it was last week from this recording, we had ReactConf, And there was a new navigation library that Airbnb kind of released. So navigation still is this thing that's kind of not 100% solved yet in React Native. In fact, it's not even close to being solved, in my opinion. But there are a lot of great, libraries out there. People are doing a lot of work, a lot of great work, but it still isn't to the point where there is a top of mind awareness for, hey, this is like the React router for React Native, or whatever you would call that. But so Airbnb released their native implementation of a navigation library. I don't think it's stable yet, but I think it's called Native Navigation. So that's another one to check out. So I think the main ones right now are the navigation library by Wix. Forgot the name of it. And then there's React Navigation, and then there's Native Navigation from Airbnb, and then React Router released their new version for that. I believe also supports React Native. So I think those four seem to be the main ones that people are using these days, and that I'm using as well.
Yeah. We've looked at a couple of them slightly, and they're definitely, you can tell each month that we kind of looked at them. They keep getting better and better, and hopefully, closer and closer to that kind of one size fits all solution.
So when you all have you all had to update a major version of React Native since you've kind of pushed out your app to the public?
So I think our web devs did have to do one fairly recently. I couldn't remember the exact version, but I know whatever version it was bad enough that they kind of just restarted the whole project to kind of upgrade instead of having to mess with all the different issues that came with it. But during my time, we had to upgrade throughout the development lifecycle, but it was never too bad.
Yeah, that's an all too common story. In fact, we are currently doing that with an app that I'm working on as a consultant, and we upgraded from I think the mid 30s, maybe 36 to whatever the newest version is now, 42 or 43, and we're having a really tough time. So we may end up doing just that maybe tomorrow, kind of just starting a brand new project and copying over all of our files and doing all that. I think it might be the best way to get it sometimes.
Sometimes with this, you just got to restart it.
Check out RNDiff if you haven't yet, Natter. Every time I've had issues with upgrading a project, I use RNDiff, and it makes the experience so much easier. Because I freaking hate going through Android's not bad, those XML files or whatever, Java files easy to work with, but it's the Xcode that just kills me, So an RNDiff, I basically just download a patch file that compares 36 to 42, for example, and just I'll run the patch against my code base or manually, well, it's not always just one patch; it's always a few patches, right? But I'll just run them through the process, and it's so much easier to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you kind of explain what RNDiff is and what it does to people that are listening that haven't used it, like me, because I've never used it?
Oh, yeah, it's the best. It's actually being worked into React Native now, if it hasn't been already. Anyway, it's literally a GitHub repo, and I forgot this person's name, but they're incredible. They basically created a brand new React Native project, all the way since its inception, first project available, every single major, minor, and patch version that came out, right? So we're talking 28, 0.28. Well, there are no major versions. So 0.28.1, 0.28.2, 0.28.3, all of those have their own, you can check out any version through this project. And then he's got commands how to generate patch files. And what you'll do is you'll download this patch file and then apply it to your own code base. So what is a patch file? It's just if you do git add I or, git add p in Git, right? So instead of committing the entire page all at once, you're committing small sections of your code, right? What this does is it basically does the same thing. It spits it out for you, and you can apply that to your project.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that sounds really, really, really helpful for sure. So, Aaron, I know you kind of said the native devs were skeptical or whatever as far as bringing in React Native. How were they towards the end of the project? Were they kind of liking it? And what do you think about if in the future, if you had another similar project and you needed it to work cross-platform with your current team, would you also pick React Native, or would you kind of go back to building native?
Yeah. So I think towards the end of the project, I guess the vibe I kind of got, a lot of people kind of dropped off as the project went forward. So I was really the only one working on it on the end, but it seemed to be that everyone was, they were still like kind of cautiously optimistic about it. I think, a worry has been like whether React Native will be supported for a long time. And I think a lot of the mobile developers at Sprout still see it as, kind of like an experiment, or they think it is a good idea. And I think going forward, we would probably, if we built another cross-platform app from scratch, I think we would go with React Native. I think we've kind of seen that the community is pretty strong. A lot of the issues that you kind of ran into with like these previous, cross-platform solutions have, been minimized a lot with React Native. And especially like at Sprout, like we basically build a mobile app that mimics features of a web app. So being able to share like code between all three of those would be an incredibly awesome thing.
I've always been sort of before that, since we mentioned like cross-platform, I'm not sure if you've seen this before, Aaron, but there's this awesome library called Yoga that actually powers Flexbox and React Native, but you can use it for just native iOS or native Android. I personally hated auto layout and stuff. I mean, I wasn't a very good iOS developer, but I tried it. If you're like interested in like possibly even like reusing, layouts across different devices, Yoga might be able to help you get there.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, because I think one of the big advantages of React Native that we saw was just being able to take advantage of Flexbox, because, like you said, auto layout, it's good, but it's nowhere near where Flexbox is, especially if you try to have ordered views in auto layout, it can get really messy really quick. So that's definitely something we'll, have to check out in the future. You said it's called Yoga?
Yeah, Yoga.
Yeah, that's really cool, because we've actually, iOS has stack views now, which is a little bit, it's kind of like Flexbox Lite, I guess. And we've been taking advantage of those like ever since we, used Flexbox and React Native.
Yeah, and I like the name too. I think it kind of goes back to like Flexbox and then flexible. The yogis are flexible, so Yoga.
That's a good name.
I could be totally wrong, but I have a feeling that I'm somewhat right.
Yeah, usually developers are good at coming up with clever names like that.
Yeah. So Aaron, we talked about how, your teammates took it or whatever, but how did your boss take it? How did the upper management feel about React Native?
Yeah, so actually our project manager and then our engineering manager, they were both JavaScript devs before this. So they were, I think, the most excited about React Native. They were the ones who really pushed it, because the rest of us were mobile developers who, we had seen, those, kind of libraries before, and we were a little bit skeptical. So we actually had a lot of great support from all levels of management, because they also saw the business value, I think, in being able to, fix it once with React, and then just be able to bring web devs in and all that stuff. So
cool. So, well, that was an easy story, right? It's fun to hear that your engineering manager and your PM were JavaScript developers beforehand. And it was also even more fun to hear that they were the ones sort of pushing for it. I feel like in the past, Natter, you might have a different opinion, but a lot of people it was always a developer that was really pushing for React Native, whereas the managers were like, well, like what if something breaks? It's not, stable yet, yada, yada, yada. So those are always fun stories.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing more and more managers and CTO type upper level people going for React Native lately, at least, because they're just seeing the value in it and they want to save the money and they want to save the developer time and kind of get things going. And React Native has kind of gotten to the point where it's being taken more seriously and they're kind of talking to other people and hearing other success stories. Whereas I think at the beginning it was more of like a fun thing for developers and, one of the things that the developers would push. And now I think it's gaining traction on both ends. I guess before we wrap up, we talked a little bit about ReactConf. So ReactConf, the third React conference was last week, and I got to go for the first time. I know, Peter, you've gone in the past, right?
Yeah. I got to go last year. It was a lot of fun.
So for me, like React Rally is like the only React, or I wouldn't say the only, it's my favorite React conference that I've gone to so far. So this is my first time going to ReactConf, and I enjoyed it just as much. It was amazing. Just a who's who, it seems like, of people in the community of smart people that I kind of got to kind of meet and talk to and ask questions and listen to them and their ideas. It was really great. But I guess for our show, we can kind of go over some of the things that were released or talked about during ReactConf. And there's a really good blog post by Spencer Carley. It's called ReactConf 2017 Overview for the React Native Developer. And we're going to kind of run over that real quick. So the big thing at this conference for React Native was Exponent, which changed their name to Expo. They seem to be all over the place with a lot of awesome stuff. So the first thing that they kind of released was Sketch, which is similar to React Native Playground, but it is even better because you can actually take your Playground and have it run on your device. So if you're interested in that, check out Sketch. I'll give you the URL. It is it's sketch.expo.io. Also, there were a few new list views for React Native that were kind of talked about and released. And they're going to be part of the newer library, I believe, release candidate 1 of version 43. So flat lists, section lists, and virtualized lists. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with these, but from what I understand, they're just going to be more performant and maybe easier to grok APIs than the traditional list view for newer developers. And then there's Create React Native App, which was basically another collaboration between Expo and the React Native folks. And it basically allows people to get started with React Native without having to have all of the native SDKs installed. So if you want to get someone hooked on React Native and you don't want to have them banging their head against the wall trying to get their SDK path for Android set up and all of Xcode and all that stuff, let them try out Create React Native App with Expo. And then one of the bigger things as well was what we talked about earlier was the new navigation library released by Airbnb, and it's basically what Airbnb is using in their app. So it's called Native Navigation, and it's one of the only native navigation implementations for React Native. One of them is Navigator iOS. The other is the navigation library implemented by Wix, and then there's this one. So most of the other navigation libraries are JavaScript. So these the native implementations are usually a little smoother and a little more performant. And then of course Microsoft and Rom, who's been on the show a few times, of course Rom had an amazing talk, and I can't even go over all the things that he kind of went over, but check out his talk. It's called Web-like Development and Release Agility for React Native. And one of them is the Mobile Azure Cloud. And it's basically a one-stop shop for developing and releasing and updating and everything that you need for your app. They even have now Crashlytics type of analytics and crash reporting. and a bunch of cool stuff. So overall, it was less of a React Native heavy conference than last year, I believe. I believe they kind of took some heat for so much React Native stuff, so they're trying to balance it out. I think they did a really good job of kind of having a combination of React and React Native stuff. Also, I met a couple people there that we're going to be having on the show in some of the upcoming episodes. Peggy Razis, she had a lightning talk about doing data visualization in React and React Native. She's going to be joining us. A couple other folks are going to be kind of coming on. Some people that you've heard of, some people you may not have heard of. So we're very much looking forward to that. We took a few weeks off before React Comp, and now we're going to be having episodes weekly, at least for a couple of months. So
we're going to have Leland Richardson come on the show too to talk about native navigation. That's going to be exciting.
Ooh, awesome.
Same with Sayajit Sahu to talk about Sketch, which is also going to be pretty cool. So just a few other folks jumping on. It's going to be exciting.
Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and get to the picks. Peter, do you have any picks?
This is a selfish, shameless plug, but I was so proud of my article. 5 Vim plugins that I can't live without for JavaScript development. I didn't think I was going to get as much feedback and praise as I did, so I'm pretty proud of myself to share. If you're a Vim developer and you're looking for some new ways to update your workflows and try out some like plugins that have recently come out, definitely check out the article. It's on Medium. Just 5 Vim plugins I can't live without.
So I have a couple of picks. The first one being version 0.10 of React Native Elements. So I'm putting React Native Elements on Open Collective. We have about 4,600 stars now, and I'm going to be donating all money to any of the maintainers of the project other than myself. So basically that means anyone that's not me that's submitted a pull request or anything is going to be kind of put together in a pool, and I'm going to be getting whatever money we're going to be getting monthly and kind of giving it to them. So that's my first pick. And we should have that all set up in the next week or two. So if you want to contribute to a project and make money, React Native Elements, check it out. Or if you just need a UI toolkit, we've kind of done a lot of new cool stuff, and it's mainly to the maintainers because I haven't had a lot of time to kind of do anything with that project lately. My next 2 picks are both conferences that I'm going to be either speaking at or helping organize. The first is React Native EU in Poland, and that's going to be in September. So if you go to react-native.eu, you can kind of learn more about the conference there. And then also Chain React is another React Native conference here in Portland, Oregon. It's put on by Infinite Red. Both of those conferences are going to be really great. So if you're in Europe or if you're in any other part of the world that's closer to Europe, check out React Native EU. And if you're over here in North America, check out Chain React. It's going to be basically the first 2 React Native conferences going on. And so far, they've already lined up great speakers, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Aaron, do you have any picks?
Yeah. So I think one of the libraries that we just started getting into that's on both iOS, Android, and React Native is Lodi, which allows you to bring After Effects animation into your mobile apps. And that's a library we're exploring at Sprout to kind of help, give our apps a bit more life, which is, seems really cool. And it's in its pretty early stages, but it looks like it has a lot of promise.
Very cool. I noticed you all have a really nice animation on your app. I just downloaded it to kind of play around with it. So when you log in, there's like a nice little animation that comes up from the bottom if you kind of switch between logging in with your email address or logging in with some type of OAuth. So I know you probably have to have be a customer to use your app. So I can't really, I guess, dig into it. But from what I've seen so far, it looks really good, by the way. So nice. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that'll do it today. So that wraps up episode 56 of React Native Radio. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.